The night was quiet on the human colony world of Lyra 9. A pale moon hung above the forests, silver light falling across the small settlement. Families slept in their homes, children tucked in their beds. The colony was peaceful, almost too peaceful, as if the calm itself was waiting to be broken. And then, it was. The first alarm cut through the silence like a scream. Sirens blared, lights flashed across the settlement walls, and security drones shot into the sky. People ran from their homes, fear on their faces. Something had entered the colony. Something fast. Something silent. Within minutes, the truth spread like fire. A child was missing. Not just any child. A human child. Panic struck the settlement. Parents grabbed their children and pulled them close. Neighbors shouted each other's names, searching for who had been taken. It was a small girl, no more than 6 years old, daughter of one of the colony's engineers. One moment she had been asleep in her room, the next she was gone. Security footage played on every screen. The image was blurry, shapes moving too fast for the cameras to follow. Long, thin shadows slipped through doors without opening them. Figures glided through walls as if they were mist. And then, one of them carried the child away into the night. Whispers rose among the colonists. They knew what it meant. They knew what it could start. Because there was one law every alien species knew. One truth that kept the galaxy balanced. No one touches human children. It was not written in treaties or carved into stone, but every race understood. It was a rule older than memory, born from fear. Entire species had vanished because they had crossed that line. Yet now, it had been broken. Far from the colony, on a hidden ship, the kidnappers argued. They were Velkari, a desperate alien race with sharp features and glowing eyes. Their species had lost wars, lost territory, and lost hope. They thought stealing a human child might give them leverage, a way to bargain with the most feared species in the galaxy. But already, cracks formed in their plan. "This is madness," hissed one Velkari captain, pacing inside the dim ship. "You have doomed us all." "We had no choice," another snapped. "Do you think the humans will listen if we beg? If we show them strength, they will respect us." The child sat quietly in the corner, her small hands folded, her eyes watching the aliens with calm curiosity. She was not crying. She was not screaming. That silence made the Velkari even more uneasy. "She doesn't fear us," one whispered. "Why?" Because deep inside, they all knew the answer. Humans were dangerous, not because of their ships, not because of their weapons, but because of something deeper. Something inside them that no alien could understand. And a child, even a small one, carried that same spark. Back on Lyra 9, the colony leader gathered the people in the square. His voice shook as he spoke. "They have taken one of ours. A child. You all know what this means. You all know the stories." The crowd stood silent. Faces pale. Some were afraid for the girl. Others were afraid of what would come next. All across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. From spaceports to trade stations, from distant outposts to alien capitals, whispers filled the air. They kidnapped a human child. Who would dare? They don't understand what they've done. Some laughed nervously, thinking it was only a rumor. Others trembled, remembering old tales of destruction. Every empire, every race, every leader knew the truth. This will wake them. On the Velkari ship, the argument grew louder. Some of the kidnappers wanted to return the child immediately, hoping humans would forgive them. Others wanted to push forward, to use the child as a weapon. "They will never forgive us," one said bitterly. "The moment we touched her, we signed our death warrant." The captain slammed his fist on the table. "No. This is our chance. We will show the galaxy that humans can bleed. That their children can be taken. They will not seem like gods anymore, they will seem mortal." But even as he spoke, his eyes flicked nervously toward the girl. She was smiling now, as if she knew something he didn't. On Lyra 9, the humans began preparing. The colony was small, but their communications reached far. Messages were sent to Earth, to the fleets, to the hidden outposts that stretched across the stars. Families locked their doors. Soldiers armed themselves. Ships lifted from hangars, engines glowing in the night. The colony knew what was coming. This was no longer about one child. This was about the rule. The line. The unbreakable truth. Somewhere, deep in space, the humans were already moving. Silent fleets hidden in the dark, waking from their slumber. Generals gathering in shadowed rooms. Weapons powering up, their light hidden from alien eyes. Because one thing was certain, when a human child was taken, there was no negotiation. There was no forgiveness. Only retribution. The colonists looked at the stars above, fear and determination in their hearts. "They think they stole from us," one soldier whispered. But what they really did was sign their own death. And as the night stretched on, the whole galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Something terrible was coming. The news spread faster than light. From Lyra 9, the signal of the kidnapping reached Earth within hours. It passed through hidden relays, secret outposts, and black satellites that only humans knew existed. By the time dawn touched the colony, Earth's highest councils were already awake. The human leaders met in silence. No words of comfort, no speeches. They all knew the meaning of this act. A child had been taken. The rule had been broken. An old admiral leaned forward, his face lit by the pale glow of the holotable. "Mobilize the fleets," he said. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned. No one argued. On Lyra 9, the family of the stolen girl sat in shock. Soldiers guarded their home, drones hovered overhead, and the mother held a blanket in her trembling hands. She whispered her daughter's name again and again, as if calling her would bring her back. The father, silent and pale, spoke only once. "Find her." The entire colony moved like a machine. Patrol ships vanished into the void, searching every system. Hunters activated cloaked beacons. Civilians carried weapons openly now, their fear sharpened into anger. Every man, woman, and child on Lyra 9 knew this was no ordinary kidnapping. This was a spark, and soon the fire would consume the galaxy. Meanwhile, on the Velkari ship, arguments grew bitter. "We should return her now," hissed one alien, his hands trembling. "The humans will crush us before we can even use her." The captain's voice was cold. "If we return her, they will kill us anyway. Our only chance is to show the galaxy they are not untouchable." The others stared at him with wide eyes. Some nodded in fear, others cursed under their breath. All of them knew the humans were coming. The child sat on the floor, her legs crossed, watching them argue. She did not cry. She did not beg. She only stared, her dark eyes calm and deep, as if she understood something they could not. One Velkari leaned close and whispered, "Why are you not afraid?" The girl tilted her head and answered softly, "Because I know my people." Her words chilled the room. Across the galaxy, alien governments received the news. Some denied it. Some panicked. Some ordered their fleets to move away from human borders, hoping to avoid the storm. In a spaceport on the world of Theron, merchants whispered nervously. They stole a human child. Who would be so foolish? They'll bring death to us all. On another world, a council of reptilian rulers argued loudly, their tails slamming against the floor. "This will wake them," one said, echoing the words spoken across the stars. "We must prepare our defenses." But deep down, they all knew defenses would not matter. Back on Earth, fleets stirred. Silent warships rose from hidden docks under oceans and mountains. Orbital rings opened like the petals of a giant flower, releasing carriers and dreadnoughts into the void. Engines lit the darkness, but no signals were sent. The galaxy's eyes saw nothing. Human fleets moved like shadows, slipping into the black between stars. Their course was clear, toward the kidnappers. On Lyra 9, the colony's leaders gathered once more. One soldier, young and angry, slammed his fist against the table. "Why do we wait? We should hunt them now." The governor shook his head. "This is not just about one child. This is about the rule. The fleets are coming. When they arrive, the galaxy will remember." A hush fell over the room. They all knew the truth. The humans would not just retrieve the girl. They would make an example so terrible that no one would ever forget. The Velkari kidnappers fled from system to system, trying to hide. But at every jump, they found evidence the humans were near. A satellite turned toward them, its dead sensors suddenly alive. A station that should have been abandoned lit up as they passed. In one system, they saw a shadow of a ship in the distance, then it was gone. "They're hunting us," one Valkyrie whispered. "They don't even need to chase us," another said. "They're already everywhere." Fear grew among the crew. They began to fight among themselves. Some wanted to throw the child into space, believing it might distract the humans. Others wanted to surrender. The captain held his ground. "No. We hold her. She is our shield." But in the corner, the child smiled faintly. Her calm was more terrifying than their rage. On Lyra 9, the soldiers prepared for war. Families said goodbye to one another. Drones painted war symbols on colony walls. Priests whispered prayers that sounded more like battle songs. The governor looked at the night sky, his face grim. "They think they can use a human child as a weapon. They don't understand. She is not their shield. She is their curse." By the time the human fleets left their hidden docks, the galaxy was already trembling. Alien leaders begged for peace, sending desperate messages toward Earth. None were answered. Because when a human child was taken, there was only one response. The humans were coming. The galaxy was restless. Every world, every spaceport, every alien capital seemed to tremble with the same whispered words. They kidnapped a human child. Merchants repeated it in crowded markets. Soldiers muttered it in barracks. Priests prayed louder in their temples. No one spoke the words openly, but they were carried in every conversation, hidden in every glance. It was not just a rumor anymore. It was truth. On the Valkyrie ship, the kidnappers jumped between star systems, trying to stay ahead of the silent hunters they knew were following them. They changed routes, erased signals, and cloaked their engines. But each time they arrived in a new system, they felt it, the cold shadow of human eyes watching. In one system, they found a derelict station. As they passed, lights flickered on inside, one by one, as if someone was walking the halls. No ship appeared, but the Valkyrie felt it. They were being marked. One alien gripped the console with shaking hands. "They are not chasing us. They are herding us." The captain tried to remain calm, but his voice cracked. "They cannot know where we are. It is impossible." But in his heart, he feared it was true. Humans had ways. They always had ways. Across the galaxy, old records were opened again. In the archives of the Sci-Fi Empire, scholars read ancient logs. They spoke of a war 10,000 years old, when another race had dared to harm a human child. That species no longer existed. Their worlds were burned, their names erased, their memory forbidden. On the cold moon of Arshak, elders gathered around fire pits, speaking of legends. "The humans are not gods," one elder whispered, "but when their young are threatened, they rise like gods of war. Their grief becomes fire. Their rage becomes death." And everywhere, alien leaders sent frantic messages. Some begged forgiveness. Some offered tribute. Some prepared armies, though they knew it was useless. No one dared to speak aloud the most terrifying thought of all. If humans were provoked this way, what would stop them from burning the entire galaxy? Inside the Valkyrie ship, fear spread like a disease. The crew began turning on each other. Some demanded they surrender. Others wanted to return the child. Others still insisted she was their only chance. One slammed his hands on the table. "She is the key. If we return her, they will destroy us. If we keep her, at least we hold something of value." But another shouted back, eyes wild. "Value? Look at her. She doesn't cry, she doesn't scream. She only watches us. She knows something, I can feel it." They turned their heads toward the child. She sat calmly in her chair, hugging her knees, her eyes shining in the dim light. "Why do you look at us like that?" one alien demanded. The girl tilted her head. Her voice was soft, but it carried through the room like a blade. "Because I know you're already dead." The Valkyrie froze. Not one dared to speak after that. Meanwhile, on Lyra 9, the humans prepared in silence. Soldiers drilled in the fields. Civilians stockpiled supplies. Drones scouted the skies. The colony lived as though they were on the edge of a storm. But the greatest movement was not seen. It was hidden in the dark between stars. Human fleets drifted silently, cloaked in shadows. They did not announce their presence. They did not send threats. They only moved closer, system by system, their formation tightening around the Valkyrie ship like a noose. The galaxy watched with dread. They saw human fleets vanish from borders, disappear from trade routes. They knew where those ships were going. "They will not stop," whispered one alien diplomat. "Not until the child is safe. And not until every lesson is burned into the stars." The Valkyrie captain tried one last act of control. He recorded a message, broadcasting it across hidden channels. His voice was harsh, full of forced confidence. "To the humans who hear this, we have your child. Do not chase us. Do not threaten us. If you approach, we will harm her." The message reached dozens of systems. Aliens listened in silence. Then, one by one, they turned off their screens, sickened. They knew what this meant. The Valkyrie had signed their own death. No human reply came. Not a word. Not a threat. Only silence. And that silence was worse than any declaration of war. In the halls of alien governments, councils trembled. Some tried to call emergency meetings with human diplomats, but the embassies were already empty. Humans had gone quiet. Too quiet. The Andori High Chancellor stood before his council, shaking his head. "It is already too late. The humans have decided. We are only waiting to see the size of the fire." On the streets of alien cities, common people whispered prayers. Some prayed for the child. Others prayed for mercy. But many simply prayed that the storm would not reach them. Back on the Valkyrie ship, the crew sat in silence. The child slept peacefully now, as if she had no care in the universe. But her words still echoed in their minds. "You're already dead." The captain sat alone in his quarters, staring at the stars. His claws tapped against the metal desk. He knew the truth, though he would not speak it aloud. The humans were coming. And there was nothing he could do to stop them. The Valkyrie ship drifted in the dark between stars, hunted but not yet caught. The crew whispered among themselves, afraid to sleep, afraid even to breathe too loudly. Every jump they made, every course they set, the shadow of humanity followed. Then, one night, the waiting ended. The first human fleet revealed itself. It happened in the Rinal system, a quiet stretch of space with only a dying star and a few barren rocks. The Valkyrie ship slipped out of jump, exhausted and half-starved, thinking they had escaped once again. But the void was not empty. Thousands of human ships hung in the dark, silent as stone. No lights, no signals, no warnings. Their black hulls absorbed the star's weak glow, their shapes sharp and endless. The Valkyrie froze as their sensors lit up with impossible readings. A whisper ran through the crew. "They've found us." The Valkyrie captain tried to steady his voice. We still hold the child. They will not fire." But even as he spoke, he felt the lie in his words. The humans had not come here to bargain. They had come for something else. The child stood near the viewport, her small hand resting on the glass. Her eyes reflected the massive fleet that surrounded them. She turned her head slightly and said one word. "Home." The Valkyrie shivered. Back on Lyra 9, the colony received the signal. The fleets had arrived. Soldiers stood ready, weapons charged, though they knew the real war was happening far away. Families gathered in silence, watching live feeds of the human armada moving into position. The governor spoke quietly to the people. "This is no longer about one child. This is about the rule. This is about the line they dared to cross." And the people nodded, their fear sharpening into cold certainty. In the Valkyrie ship, the crew fell into chaos. Some wanted to surrender, begging the captain to send out distress signals. Others argued to keep running, to jump again and again until the humans grew tired. But it was already too late. The humans had moved. The fleet split in silence, ships gliding into perfect formation. From every angle, massive destroyers and carriers closed in. There was no escape. The Valkyrie scrambled to prepare weapons, but alarms blared across their ship. Energy readings surged from the human fleet, so precise, so sharp, that the Valkyries' own systems failed just by being scanned. "They're shutting us down," cried one officer. "Fight back," the captain roared. But deep down, he knew there would be no fight. The first human strike came not with fire, but with silence. One by one, the Valkyries' communication satellites exploded in perfect sequence. Outposts lit up briefly, then vanished in clouds of burning debris. Their allies, watching from afar, recoiled in horror. The message was clear: the Valkyrie were alone. On their ship, panic spread. Officers screamed, trying to keep systems alive. Some begged to release the child into space, thinking it might distract the humans. Others wept openly, knowing it would make no difference. The child, however, remained calm. She walked to the center of the room, her small voice breaking the chaos. "They are not here to talk. They are here to remind you." The crew stared at her, and for the first time, they believed her. Across the galaxy, alien governments watched the broadcast leaks. Though the humans themselves remained silent, images of their fleets began to spread, black warships blotting out stars, engines burning like eyes in the void. Councils trembled. Rulers prayed. Ordinary citizens whispered that the end of the Valkyrie was the beginning of something far worse. One elder in the Sci-Fi Empire closed his eyes and said, "They are writing another warning into history." Back in the Rinal system, the first battle began. Human warships moved with terrifying precision. Their strikes were fast, surgical, and unstoppable. Valkyrie defense stations lit up in fire, their shields crushed in seconds. Entire fleets, scrambled together in desperation, vanished under the weight of human bombardment. But the humans did not attack blindly. They burned only what belonged to the Valkyrie. Neighboring stations, belonging to other species, were left untouched. This made the message even clearer. This is not war. This is punishment. On the Valkyrie ship, systems failed one after another. Power dimmed, weapons shut down, engines froze. The captain clutched his console with trembling hands. Perhaps we can still negotiate," he whispered. But his officers looked at him with hollow eyes. They knew better. One by one, their screens flickered, and a single human symbol appeared, the sigil of Earth. No words, no voices, just the image, glowing like a cold promise. The captain lowered his head. He finally understood. In that moment, the child spoke again. Her voice was calm, but it cut through the silence like a blade. "They came for me. But they will not stop with me. You brought this upon everyone." Her words felt heavier than any weapon. The Valkyrie crew, once proud and desperate, now sat broken, waiting for the end. On Lyra 9, the colonists received the final transmission. The human fleets had taken full control of the Rinal system. The Valkyrie homeworld was next. The governor stood before the people, his face pale but steady. "The reckoning has begun. They thought they could touch what is untouchable. Now they will learn why even the bravest of empires whisper in fear of us." And as the colony looked to the stars, they knew the storm had only started. The Valkyrie homeworld was drowning in fear. For weeks, the skies above their cities had glowed red as human fleets cut through their defenses, system by system, never stopping, never slowing. Every colony, every outpost, every fleet the Valkyrie sent forward was destroyed with terrifying precision. And now, the humans had arrived at the heart of their empire. In orbit, a black wall of ships stretched across the heavens. Carriers the size of continents blotted out the sun. Dreadnoughts drifted silently, their weapons glowing faintly, waiting. The Valkyrie people looked up and felt smaller than insects beneath a boot. The Valkyrie High Council sat in their chamber, voices rising in panic. "We must surrender," shouted one. "No. If we surrender, they will still kill us," another cried. "We must give back the child." But when they asked where the child was, the room fell silent. The kidnappers had gone silent too. No messages, no signals. They were trapped somewhere in orbit, hiding like animals. The council trembled, knowing their fate no longer rested in their hands. On the Valkyrie ship, the kidnappers gathered around the stolen girl. Their ship was barely functioning, systems failing under the silent pressure of the human fleet that surrounded them. The captain, once defiant, was now pale and shaking. He whispered, "If we return her, perhaps they will stop." But one of his officers laughed bitterly. You think they care for your deal? Look outside. Look at what they've already done. It's too late. The child sat quietly in the corner, her small face calm. She looked at the captain and said, They aren't here to make deals. They are here to make sure this never happens again. Her words froze the air. Even the most stubborn among them felt their courage collapse. In the skies above the Valkyrie homeworld, the first human strikes began. They did not target cities. They did not target civilians. Instead, one by one, the Valkyrie's military headquarters, shipyards, and orbital defenses burst into flames. Precision fire cut through their strongest shields like paper. The galaxy watched in horror as entire fleets tried to resist, only to be erased within minutes. The humans moved with absolute control, as if every step of the battle had already been planned. One Valkyrie commander screamed into his comms. They don't fight like soldiers. They fight like executioners. And he was right. The Valkyrie kidnappers grew desperate. Some begged to kill the child, thinking it might scare the humans into stopping. Others wanted to broadcast her face, to prove she was still alive. But the captain shook his head, tears streaming down his face. No. She is the only reason we still breathe. Then, for the first time, he dropped to his knees before the girl. Tell them to stop. Please. You have the power. Tell them to stop. The girl looked at him with sad eyes. Her voice was soft, but it carried like thunder. I don't tell them what to do. They are my people. And they are already here. On the human flagship, deep within the Armada, the admirals stood in silence. No arguments, no hesitation. Orders were short, direct, and final. One admiral's voice echoed across the fleet. They crossed the line. End it. With those words, the bombardment began. Valkyrie fleets exploded under the weight of rail cannons and plasma fire. Orbital stations burned and fell like meteors onto their own cities. Every stronghold was reduced to rubble. But still, the humans avoided civilians. Their strikes were precise, targeted, calculated. It was not conquest. It was not war. It was a lesson. The Valkyrie High Council, trapped in their chamber, watched the sky turn black. They begged for mercy, sending desperate messages toward Earth. But their pleas were met with silence. Finally, one of the counselors collapsed, whispering, We are finished. All because of a child. On the kidnapper's ship, alarms screamed. Hull breaches tore through the corridors. Systems failed one after another. The captain clutched his chest, gasping. We tried to be strong. The girl stood slowly, her small frame steady even as the ship shook around her. She walked to the viewport and pressed her hand against the glass. Outside, the human fleet loomed. You thought you could use me as a weapon, she said softly. But you forgot what happens when humans are pushed. The Valkyrie crew fell silent, staring at her as if she were not just a child but a herald of their doom. At last, the kidnappers made their final choice. With shaking hands, the captain sent out a transmission. To the humans, we surrender. We return the child. Please, show mercy. The message carried across the stars. Every alien empire held its breath, waiting for the human reply. But no reply came. Only the endless silence of the human fleets, moving closer, weapons still burning. The Valkyrie realized then, surrender would not save them. This was the final stand. On Lyra 9, the people received the news, the Valkyrie homeworld was falling. The governor stood before his colony, his face lit by the glow of 1,000 screens. They thought the child was their shield, he said quietly. But she was never a shield. She was their doom. And above the Valkyrie world, the reckoning reached its peak. The Valkyrie homeworld was silent. Its once bright cities lay in ruins. Towers of glass and steel were shattered. Shipyards floated as broken husks in orbit, drifting among the ashes of their fleets. The humans had come and gone like a storm, leaving nothing but wreckage in their wake. But unlike other conquerors, they had not stayed to rule. They had not taken slaves or land. They had left only silence, and a warning written in fire. In the ruins, the Valkyrie Council crawled from their shelters. Their faces were pale, their robes torn. They looked to the skies, half expecting the human ships to return and finish the job. But the fleets had vanished, disappearing as quickly as they had come. Only one thing remained, a single transmission, echoing across their shattered world. The voice was calm, clear, and terrifying in its simplicity. The child is ours. Never again. Far away, in the human colony of Lyra 9, the missing girl returned. She stepped off the transport ship into the arms of her family. Her mother wept, clutching her tightly, refusing to let go. Her father knelt down, tears streaming down his face. Around them, the entire colony gathered in silence. No words were spoken. Everyone understood the price that had been paid for her safety. Above the colony, banners were raised. Lights filled the streets. Not in celebration, but in remembrance. Every person knew what had happened to the Valkyrie. Every person knew what could happen again. Across the galaxy, fear spread like wildfire. In alien markets, merchants whispered. They burned a homeworld for one child. In distant palaces, kings and queens ordered new laws. No one touches the humans. Not their soldiers. Not their settlers. Not even their children. On remote mining stations, workers stared at the stars with dread. What kind of species can do this? And what will they do next? Some called the humans monsters. Others called them protectors. But all agreed on one thing: humanity had crossed a line that no species dared challenge. The Valkyrie kidnappers who had taken the child were never found. Some said the humans had captured them and erased them without a word. Others claimed the Valkyrie themselves hunted them down, desperate to beg for mercy by offering their heads. But the truth was never revealed. All that remained was the girl's quiet memory of them, their fear, their desperation, and their final pleas. When asked what she remembered most, she spoke only one sentence. They thought I was weak. But I was never alone. On Earth, human leaders met in silence. The council chambers were filled with men and women who had guided the fleets. They did not smile. They did not boast. Their faces were heavy with the knowledge of what they had unleashed. One leader spoke quietly. We have shown them our strength. But strength has a price. Another replied. And now, the galaxy fears us more than ever. They looked to the stars, knowing that from this moment on, humanity could never return to being just another species. They were now something else, something larger, something feared. On Lyra 9, the girl walked through the settlement. People stepped aside as she passed, not out of disrespect, but out of awe. To them, she was more than a child. She was the spark that had awakened humanity's fury. Children whispered her name like a legend. Parents told their sons and daughters, remember this day. Remember what it means to be human. And yet, the girl herself remained quiet. She did not smile, even when surrounded by her friends. She did not laugh, even when her family begged her to. For she had seen the truth. She had looked into the eyes of her kidnappers and seen what fear could do. She had looked into the skies above a burning world and understood what her people had become. The galaxy gave humanity a new name. They no longer called them explorers. They no longer called them allies. They called them the sleeping beasts. For they had learned the greatest rule of all. Humans could be kind, humans could be peaceful, humans could be builders and dreamers. But if someone took from them, if someone dared to touch what they held dear, then the beasts would awaken. And once awakened, nothing could stand against them. In the end, the galaxy fell silent again. Trade routes reopened. Ships once more crossed the stars. Life returned to a fragile balance. But beneath the surface, fear lingered. Every alien empire built their walls higher, their guards tighter, their whispers quieter. None wished to be the next Valkyrie. And among humans, a quiet truth was understood. They had not fought this war for power. They had not fought it for conquest. They had fought it for a single child. On a quiet night, that child stood alone, looking up at the stars. Her voice was barely a whisper, carried only by the wind. They will never understand us, she said softly. But they will never forget us either. Her words drifted into the sky, where countless stars watched silently. And the galaxy shivered.